So, what's the big deal about, and will this be a revolutionary game changer in the data space in India? Joining us on our Talking Point panel, R. Chandrasekhar is president of NASSCOM, former telecom secretary. TV Ramachandran is president of the Broadband India Forum, formerly DG of the Cellular Operators Association of India. Pankaj Mohindroo is founder and national president of the Indian Cellular Association. Romal Shetty, partner and head of telecom at KPMG, and here in our studios, Pushpendra Singh is CEO of TravelKhana.com. It's an internet startup. Let me start with you, Mr. Chandrasekhar. How big a deal is this? And I mean, the announcements made today were very staggering. Whether free voice calls, nobody in India has offered free voice calls in the manner in which Jio is offering. We've got data, 5 paise for 1 MB, which is 50 rupees for 1 gigabyte. Just in terms of, and I want to kickstart the discussion by talking about these price points. I mean, just how revolutionary are these price points? Because we are, after all, a very, very price-sensitive market.
Yeah, I think this is certainly a big deal, and let me say why that is so. You know, the telecom industry and the telecom service provision has in the past been largely voice-centric, and the bulk of the revenues came from voice, with data being an add-on. And the pricing also was not based on the kind of traffic that it created or the kind of load that it created on the infrastructure, but based on a more historical perspective. This was because many of them were, most of them in fact, started with 2G and moved on to 3G, and only now have started moving into 4G.
That's right.
Whereas here you have a new entrant who has come in at the higher end or at the deep end with a completely new technology, completely IP based, completely 4G, and are able to derive the full benefit and advantages of new technology. But that's the nature of competition in the technology business, that newer technology and newer entrants do come in with an advantage, and the absence of legacy makes it possible to start at a price point which makes business sense with the new technology.
So what Mr. Chandrasekhar is essentially saying, Mr. Ramachandran, is if this project comes to full fruition, right, it's going to change the way we make calls. It's not going to be voice calls anymore. People are going to prefer to make either WhatsApp calls or FaceTime or Skype or what have you. It's going to change the way the telecom business is run as a result.
Mr. Jacob, I do tend to agree to some extent. Yes, largely. But, and today what we have heard is quite a stupendous announcement by Reliance. So all power to them. I think it's a great thing. We have not heard the likes of this in the last 20 years in India. And I don't think even on the global scale there has ever been such a launch, such a scale of launch and such a package of announcements. Some of it is not really unexpected. People are talking about the free voice. That was expected with what they are going to come, that it will be. But the way he has come in on data is indeed very clever. It's very good. He's even packaged special things for the younger generation. In fact, today in the announcement you heard, he talked about his son and daughter coming. Average age of the group is now 30. So they are thinking young, and India is going that way.
No, but tell me this. I'm sort of rephrasing. I'm sorry I'm interrupting you, but I'm rephrasing that same question. My question is simply this. In 10 years, will voice as a technology exist, or are all our voice calls now going to be over the internet?
Well, there will be a heavy migration, but it's not going to be all that fast. I think it may happen in the 5 to 10 years range. There would still be, I think, a fair fraction of voice. See, one thing I want to add also, there are 2-3 things you have to bear in mind. Firstly, this data aspect which he's playing on is beautiful. It's his idea is to create a data deluge. And I would bet today, if the average subscriber is using about 1 GB, which I think I may not be wrong in that, I bet the Reliance customer will be using about 3 GB soon, because he's going to be using 3 months free. He'll get used to it, and then he'll be locked into that sort of usage. So
and people want to consume more stuff on the internet. I mean, evidence shows that people want to consume more stuff on the internet. But Pankaj Mohindroo, what kind of pressure?
No, 1 minute.
I'll just come back. Okay, finish your point quickly, please. No.
Because when you do 3 to 5 GB of data with even 5 paise an MB, which is a rock bottom charge, 50 rupees a GB, you're going to get an ARPU of how much? 150 to 250 bucks. So you're sitting pretty. So the whole thing is very well engineered, cleverly engineered, and I think this is going to change the way the game is being played here. And it's, I am sure the incumbents are going to come back with counter offers, the big boys. Definitely they'll ring fence their high value customers, because as you know, the 80-20 rule applies even here, that 20% of your customers give you 80% of your revenue.
Yeah, I was just coming.
Will be smart.
Yeah, I was just coming to the incumbent players. I mean, of course, I'm more interested in how this is going to change the way the Aam Aadmi, the common man, how it's going to change the way technology is going to make his life better. So if we're going to migrate from voice calls to calls over the internet, and if that's going to make everybody's life better for it, then I think that's much bigger than what happens in the industry. But Pankaj Mohindroo, already we are seeing, you know, huge sort of price wars between the incumbent players and Jio, even before Jio launched. We've seen how established players like Airtel and Vodafone have dropped data charges by as much as 40% in the last few weeks. How long before we see this sort of fight on price stabilize? Because at the end of the day, in the longer term, it's not going to be so much price that's going to drive this market. It's technology, it's innovation, it's service, right? Mr. Mohindroo, can you hear me? Yeah, that question was for you.
Yeah, I can hear you now. You see, I want to give a perspective, you know, wonderful to have my old dear friends, Mr. Chandrasekhar and TV and Romal here. You know, this is a stupendous opportunity for the mobile handset industry, because the 55 crore feature phone users in India and the 150 million or 15 crores non-4G smartphone users, this is a big catalyst for migrating them to smartphones. And that's an opportunity of almost 150,000 crores, 200,000 crores for the handset industry. And that is what we feel that the consumers are going to invest because of Reliance Jio catalyzing that. Now, we have, you know, the government of India set up our task force to build a powerful handset industry of 500 million by 1920. Intriguingly, the value target given to us was 150,000 to 300,000 crores. So I think somebody in the regulatory dispensation was imagining that, you know, we could just chug along, or they could be a huge catalyst for some stupendous growth. And I think this is the revolution which was waiting to happen.
Okay.
And as the Chinese revolutionary said in 1911, that a revolution is something which touches the common man.
Yeah.
This is not going to affect, you know, the metros and so on and so forth, because there is going to be retaliatory tariffs, and the incumbent operators already have 4G and 3G services, and the services, there is decent data speed. But if you look at the smaller towns and you look at the common man, even in the rural areas, that is where this data revolution is going to come. And the key question is going to be, is the consumer going to migrate to a 4G handset, and how is this ecosystem going to evolve?
Okay.
And I think TV said something very, very clever. You see, with
50 crore customers consuming even 1 GB of data is 50 crore GB of data, and at 50 rupees, that's not a mean figure. That is 250,000 crores.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with TV that there is a 80-20 principle. This is a bottom of the pyramid industry, and I think this mindset, that this 80-20 mindset, we have to deliver data speeds, we have to deliver high quality voice to the consumers. And if you look at it now, the TRAI has, you know, the MySpeed app which can actually measure data speeds.
Yeah.
We also have call drops per tower available. So if we are looking at the metros and the big towns, consumers can actually compare. So if there are, you know, tariffs which will come in competition and so on, the consumers have a choice now. They have a technical solution available with which they can actually find out whether they should go to this service or not.
Let me also get in. Let me also get in, Mr. Romil Shetty. You know, in terms of what this does, to the price wars we've already mentioned, and I'm just going to put this out for our viewers. In terms of global prices that people pay for data and what Jio envisages, the current average price in India for data, for 1 gigabyte of data, is about $3.50 US. In Japan, which is one of the highest in the world, you have to pay $30 for 1 gigabyte of data. In South Korea, it's about $18 for 1 gigabyte. In China, it's about $15. What Jio envisages is to have less than $1 for 1 gigabyte of data. I mean, that at least from a price point of view, that is something remarkable. But Mr. Shetty, how sustainable is this in the medium to long term? Because obviously this indicates, and Pankaj, Mohindroo and TV Ramachandran were referring to this, you have to then look at the number of subscribers who are going to come in to this service just for data and hope that they use, let's say, 3 to 5, maybe even 10 GB of data, so that you can rationalize this cost.
So, Zaka, I think one is clearly, I mean, obviously the Jio strategy is customer acquisition in the first phase, and really in India it's been very difficult for any challenger to really come and become a leader. So you have to create market disruption, and there is no doubt that they have created the disruption. But if you really look at the fact that whether this is sustainable, no. Beyond a point of time, I mean, the first 3 months free, then obviously the next 12 months you have lots of freebies additionally given. That will not continue. It is initially to get a market share because that is important. But after a point of time, right, they will have to increase the prices. So in the medium term or long term, where I look at it as basically after 18 months per se, then slowly the prices will definitely increase. There is no doubt about that.
Okay, but there's I think I want to bring in Pushpinder. It's not going to just change the way we consume data or the way we use the internet. But Pushpinder, you run an internet startup, right? Travelkhana.com. If there's going to be more data available to consumers at cheaper prices, and if that competition is going to then force the other incumbent players also to reduce prices and to offer more data, how does that change the nature of a business like yours that's dependent on the internet?
Well, significantly. Actually, ours is a business which really reaches out to the length and breadth of the country.
Yeah, so it's not a Delhi-Bombay business.
It's like not a Delhi-Bombay, Gurgaon, Noida kind of a business. It's a business that reaches out to towns like Badneras, and it reaches out to towns like Ratnagiris.
Okay.
Now, when you have a service like this available all across the country, there's a huge amount of opportunity which is available.
So basically, you're saying that if there's a consumer using your app or your business in say Ratnagiri, who's today able to get 10 GB of data at say 10 Mbps speed or 20 Mbps speed, that is a significant boon for a business like yours.
Yes, absolutely. Like for example, we just tell you about my business. We built in technology so that we could work without the internet.
Okay.
Now that actually poses a lot of limitation on the user. And we don't really want to put in that kind of a limitation.
Okay.
So this kind of a facility would really enable a lot of different types of use cases.
And particularly those in, say, grade B, grade C cities or towns or even villages for that matter.
Absolutely. See, we in the cities, we like big cities, we don't really know the price point difference. If someone offers us a service at about 1,000 rupees and then someone else comes at 600, so it's just like 400 rupees or 500 rupees a month.
Yeah.
But that's a significant amount of impact in the
for
smaller
somebody
cities.
who's in a smaller town.
And especially that 25% increase for the student community.
Yeah.
Because that's the community which actually consumes
data
the most.
Yeah. I think that was a smart move. 25% more for students. But R. Chandrasekhar, you know, that's what I was coming to. This could be a game changer because, you know, the Prime Minister has outlined a digital India vision. We have in this country, I think 800, maybe 900 million people who do not have access to the internet. If Jio is promising big data at big speeds to people who are staying in Ratnagiri or other smaller towns like Pushpinder was saying, I mean, is that perhaps one way of bridging this digital divide? Today you have an India and you have a Bharat, digitally speaking. Is this one way to bridge that divide?
No, it's certainly a major contribution to bridging the divide, but I think we need to also keep in mind that it is not simply the lack of affordability which was keeping people away from the internet. The non-availability of the service itself was a limitation. So it's only after the service becomes available that then you have some people who may not be accessing it because they are not able to afford it. And with the kind of community access points that are available in India, even that is not a 100% barrier, except that people would, for affordability reasons, limit the use of the internet to the bare minimum. What this does is to move the whole paradigm away from using the internet to the bare minimum to using it as liberally as you want to, like running water, which is not charged for. Of course, even that is changing today, but the whole mindset changes. So that's, I think, the critical aspect. The second thing is that this is, this is a change which has been brought about by entering with a very different kind of technology, a very different kind of network from many of the incumbents. When, in fact, we had responded to some of the consultation papers which TRAI had put out, even at that time, I think we had mentioned that if you really want the whole internet ecosystem, the startups, the entrepreneurs, the innovators to really flourish, then all this artificial distinction in terms of the pricing between voice and data should be removed, and all content should flow as data, and it should be charged at a relatively low level. And that's exactly what has happened now, that by this combination it has become possible to charge everything as data and then also make the price at the same time very affordable.
That's the larger point, and I keep coming back to this, TV Ramachandran, because I think what Jio as an idea is something that whose time has come, because it represents an aspiration of the user, of the consumer. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, we used to make normal voice calls, right? Today, people are making WhatsApp calls, or they want to FaceTime, or they want to Skype. The way we text has changed. Today, people are texting, or they're using Facebook Messenger, or they're using WhatsApp, or they're using Snapchat, or Instagram, or what have you. The very nature of messaging has changed. So to that extent, Jio is actually responding to consumer needs. It's responding to the new age consumer. I mean, that's why I keep coming back to this point that in 10 years, people are not going to be using voice or text. They'll instead be using these apps which are dependent on the internet. and dependent on data.
You're right. I mean, Daka, I agree with you. But, there are two other things which are going on parallelly, which are going to influence this.
Which is
and
what?
Reliance is smartly playing that also. See, number one, whatever you may say, in the real rural areas, and I've seen quite a bit of it in recent times, there is still a long way to go on digital literacy, skilling the people, right? And the languages, the content has to be available in the languages. And there, Reliance is investing heavily, I think, in the developer community and developing apps for that. So that's going on, I think, quietly in the background. We are not seeing that.
Okay.
So unless we create more of that demand pull, this surge towards data, as you rightly put it, is not going to be fully exploited. It will happen. Whether it's going to be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, that's the question. It's a transition which is going to happen because here in India we're coping with 2-3 big challenges. One, the diversity in the country, the plethora of languages, the geographical diversity. It's a huge challenge to expect that overnight it's going to happen, this change. But it is a transformation that is going to get rolling with broadband happening. Today we are at rock bottom on broadband.
Yeah.
From Broadband India Forum, we are very concerned about that. And we are what mobile used to be 20 years ago. So the way to go is only up. We have to make this happen like we made it happen in mobile, and that will happen with the play of all technologies, whether it is 4G, it's not just 4G. Fiber has its place. OFC has to come out big in India. It's not yet there. BharatNet has not happened. You need lots of cable. You need lots of Wi-Fi spots. So all technologies have to play. And I think 4G element which Reliance has played today is one of the big cards in that. I'm sure they'll have others also. Other players will be doing it.
Pankaj, Mohindroo, and just to take this forward, the success of this idea, and clearly it's disrupted the market. We've already seen the statements of both the established main players, Airtel and Vodafone. The stocks today, Idea in fact dropping substantially, losing about 2,000 plus crores in market capitalization. Airtel at one point lost almost 9,000 crores. Let's leave that aside, okay? That's an industry thing that's going to play itself out. I'm looking at more medium to long term. It's not just the price points and this price war that's going to sustain Jio if it has to take off as a game-changing idea, but it's the quality of what they're offering. It's the transformative nature of what they're offering, whether it's in voice quality in a country which is beset by call drop problems, whether it's data speeds, whether it's interconnectivity, whether it's just customer service and customer satisfaction. These will be the long-term determinants to the success of Jio.
I think this is the best thing which has happened to the incumbent operators also, that there is a big challenger, and this is the best thing which could have happened to the industry and the trade. There is a big challenger, it's bringing something very compelling, and let me look at a very narrow vertical, which is, what is this all about? You see, if we are looking at the bottom of the pyramid, the person who is getting his pension into his account today through direct bank transfers, and his subsidy there, and unfortunately he is not able to catch the text which is coming to him because there's a dark spot. This is a terrible situation, and I think that needs to improve. I'm not talking about data speeds at the moment. I'm talking about the bottom of the pyramid customer. Voice quality, which is so pathetic at the moment, except in certain spots where things have improved, I think the challenger is going to create ripples which is going to impact everybody, and I think everybody is going to benefit out of it.
All right. Now, I'm going to take a couple of quick closing comments. Right? I really have to wrap up. Quick closing comments from Mr. Shetty as well as Pushpinder Singh. In terms of how this goes forward, Mr. Shetty, again, I keep coming back to this time and time again because I think, when Steve Jobs launched the smartphone, the iPhone, people said, people are not going to buy a phone without buttons, right? I mean, a phone essentially has to have buttons, otherwise how will it work? And look what the iPhone has done to the smartphone industry. In terms of a new technology that Jio is offering, it's as close as it gets in terms of the attempt is to transform the market and the technology that is available out there. So VoLTE is actually attempting to do to data what the iPhone did to smartphones.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is obviously a new technology, and I think the two things which are important, I think, is nowhere in the world has this technology been deployed at the scale and diversity, and to the number of people like in India that we've deployed. So there are going to be issues because there's no precedent per se of something like this. The second important part is that as you deploy this technology, I think very important, while you provide superior technology services, you also provide superior customer services, and at the same time have greater access to varied kinds of content. So if otherwise, if only pricing is the game, that's not really going to win in the long term.
All right.
You've got to manage all the other three as well.
I'll give a quick closing comment to Pushpinder. In terms of how you foresee Jio helping your business, let's say from a year from now or 18 months from now.
No, absolutely. I really see that many more use cases emerging.
Okay.
More than my business, actually, I see like there's a huge social impact as well. Like there is 30% of our population, which is about 400 million, which is uneducated. And there is absolutely a huge phenomenal opportunity to really reach out to these people by digital education.
All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll see. Like they say, I mean, history will judge whether Jio is the game changer that its envisioners want it to be, and how this is going to ultimately change the ordinary lives of the common man out there. And I think the focus should be really on that more than the price wars or what's going on in the industry. We'll see. History will be the judge of that. In the meantime, for this conversation, thank you very much, Pushpinder Singh, Pankaj Mohindroo, TV Ramachandran, Robert Shetty, and R. Chandrasekhar.